Welcome back to Important Library Stuff, a podcast where library staff share the inside scoop on all the stuff that happens at Prince William Public Libraries. And trust us, it's a lot of stuff. I'm your host, Emily Bickers, media specialist from the Office of Communications and Marketing, and I am joined each episode by fellow staff members and special guests who know a lot more on each episode's topic than I do, which for this episode is Summer Scares. Today, I'm not only joined by Summer Scares programmers Rosanne Northjack and Matt McClellan from Haymarket Gainesville Library, but we'll also be hearing from 2025 Summer Scares spokesperson and #1 New York Times bestselling author Kendare Blake a little later in the episode. So Matt, Rosanne, thank you for coming back.
Yes, thank you for having us.
So excited. First of all, for those who don't know, what is the Summer Scares program?
So to use some of the descriptions from some of the sources, Summer Scares is a reading program that provides libraries and schools with an annual list of recommended horror titles for adult, young adult, and middle grade readers. Its purpose is to introduce readers and librarians to new authors and to help start conversations extending beyond the books from each list and promote reading for years to come. It was founded in 2019 by the Horror Writers Association in partnership with Booklist, Book Riot, iRead, and Novelist to promote horror as a great reading option for all ages during any time of the year.
Awesome. And at Prince William Public Libraries, it involves programs, displays.
Yep.
We're doing
special events.
So this is the second year that PWPL has participated in the National Summer Scares program, and the second year that you both have joined me to discuss it on Important Library Stuff. Last year's episode is number 15, The Summer Scares of Hill House, and it's still well worth a listen because we were joined by spokesperson and author from that year, Clay McLeod Chapman. So with this being a sequel podcast episode, I want to ask you both, are you a fan of horror sequels?
Ooh, it really depends. And Matt and I can go on and talk for hours about this, but sometimes you want to keep reading about a world or a character because you love it so much, or you just want another rematch between the final girl or guy and the masked killer, like with Stephen Graham Jones' Angel of Indian Lake series. After I read the first one, I absolutely wanted more of Jade in my life, and I was very happy when he made that into a trilogy. But honestly, sometimes the book is so well written and the story is wrapped up enough that I'm afraid anything else being added to it will just ruin it. So it really depends.
Yeah, I think I love the idea of horror sequels. I think it's probably because I love horror movie sequels so much. I just don't think I've read enough of them.
There needs to be more.
Most of the horror that I read is one book, and that's it.
Or it's multiple. Like it's never, or rarely is it ever just a duology.
Correct. Yeah.
Or it's just like the series that goes on and on and on and on and on and never dies.
So that being said, do you have a favorite horror sequel book?
Ooh, it was very difficult for me to answer this question without extremely dating myself or talking about Stephen King, but I tried. So I loved The Vampire Lestat by Anne Rice. In this book, it is a direct follow-up to Interview with the Vampire, and Lestat becomes a rock star, and it is every bit as cringe and as, oh my God, I want more of this, as you think it is. He rises to fame in the 80s as a rock musician, and it explores his early vampire experiences in search for meaning. The producers of the film smooshed this together with the Queen of the Damned book to make the Queen of the Damned film. And it's every bit as glorious and reading between your fingers as you think it is. I am in the camp of I love that movie. I will die on that hill. It's amazing. So I'm very glad you get to see that part in the movie from the book. And then the other one is technically a trilogy, but it's The Fall by Guillermo del Toro and Chuck Hogan. And that's through the Strain trilogy. I really loved The Strain when it came out because it treats vampirism as a virus. So very much akin to a fictionalized horror version of the Hot Zone book. If you've ever read that, it's amazing. And this book follows the spread of a vampiric virus across the United States and the world. And a small group of heroes led by Ephraim Goodweather struggles to combat the plague and prevent its complete takeover. And it explores a war between old and new vampires all vying for control with humans caught in the middle. So I really, really loved that one as well.
My favorite horror sequel is called After the End of the World by Jonathan L. Howard. It's the second book. Actually, it only has 2 books in the series. I would love more. I want more from this group. The first book was called Carter and Lovecraft. It's basically a revisit to the world that H.P. Lovecraft built, but set in more modern day. I love the first one, and the second one is just different enough that it turns the entire world into a completely different place. I recommend that all the time. After the End of the World. The other one I would say I really loved was What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher, which is, there's only 2 books of the series now, but the third one is coming out pretty soon. And it is a reimagining of Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. And
I have heard of this series.
It's great. It's short. So it's kind of an easy book to fit in between some of the other door stoppers that we love. But definitely check that one out. T. Kingfisher's books. The first one is called What Moves the Dead, and the second one is called What Feasts at Night.
Are those for adults?
They are adult books, yes.
Okay. I think both of mine are too. Okay.
So thanks for talking sequels. Back to Summer Scares. A panel of authors, including Kendare Blake and library workers around the country, helped choose a reading list of 9 titles, as Matt mentioned, 3 in each age group, and I will list them off. The adult selections are Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Misfortunes by Eric LaRocca, Reprieve by James Hahn Matson, and Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. The young adult picks are Devils Unto Dust by Emma Berquist, The Getaway by Lamar Giles, and Find Him Where You Left Him Dead by Kristen Simmons. Last but not least, the middle grade selections, which is around ages 8 to 11, are Eerie Tales from the School of Screams by Graham Annable, Ravenous Things by Derek Chow, and Hide and Seeker by Dacre Herman. Have either of you had the chance to read these yet? And if so, what were your thoughts?
Yes, I read a couple of the adult selections titled The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling. We read that for my book club, Read by Dawn, which meets virtually on the final Monday of each month. Loved it. Great kind of crossover book, kind of horror sci-fi. I've also read Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke and Other Misfortunes. Eric LaRocca has kind of made his way up into some of my must-read, everything that he has released authors. Yeah, I love everything that he's written, and that was the first book that I read from him.
Every time I put that on my to-read list, I'm always like, oh, it's too scary. I don't want to read.
It's one to read the physical book of because of its format. Mm. It's formatted as a series of emails or text messages. So, and the book shows that really well.
Okay. I went back and read one from each category of last year's Summer Scares list, but I did get a chance to read Devils Unto Dust by Emma Berquist, and I added her on Blue Sky to say that this is the best mashup of True Grit and The Walking Dead that I have ever read. And she said, funny you should say that. That's how we pitched it to the publisher and the editor. And I'm like, I got you. I got you. It's so, so good. And I was telling Matt the other day, horror westerns done correctly scratch such a satisfying itch that I have, because that is one of my favorite genres of horror. And it doesn't have to be zombies. It could be horror vampire westerns, like horror Lovecraftian westerns, like just everything Old West and fighting evil.
Speaking of sequels, if you've ever read Red Rabbit by Alex Grushian.
Yes, I have.
The sequel is out for that.
Yay!
And it's on my very soon to be read list.
Oh, I didn't know that.
It's called Rose of Jericho.
Okay, that was such a great book. I love that book. And then I haven't read The Luminous Dead by Caitlin Starling, but I have read The Death of Jane Doe. I think I'm saying that wrong. Hold on. I just saw it. The Death of Jane Lawrence. I read that, and that's more of a gothic horror, and I loved it. So I really am looking forward to going back and revisiting. And I have seen the young adult titles, the other young adult titles, but I haven't had a chance to look at them or the middle grade ones yet.
Nice. So 2/3 of the list are for kids and teens. Have you noticed a growing interest in horror among younger readers?
Growing interest? I would say no. I think that kids have always been into horror. And before, it was watching horror films that they weren't meant to be seeing or sneaking their parents' Stephen King novels. But I think at some point publishers realized this and that's whenever you started seeing like a large influx of horror novels that were geared towards that age group, like Goosebumps or R.L. Stein or
Spooksville.
Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. Like the stuff that I was reading when I was young, that's whenever it was really hitting. Like I think they realized that that's what we wanted to read. So I think that since then, I think kids are just given more access to subjects that they're interested in, and a lot of kids really love horror.
I agree. I have a 6-year-old who is obsessed with everything and anything horror. And
what are some of his top
books? He can't read yet, but he's working on it.
His top books that you picked for him.
He and I actually listened to the audio collection of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark at bedtime. We've tried to read Lord of the Rings and some Lovecraft and some original Germanic fairy tales like Brothers Grimm. And so he really loves like the short encapsulate stories that come with moralistic fairy tale types. I'm trying to think. I checked out a lot of Anne Rice and Stephen King and R.L. Stein and Christopher Pike in middle school and high school. And I think that those aren't necessarily written for children. So it's very nice to have more options available now for kids that aren't necessarily, I don't want to say like appropriate for them, but more like written with them in mind.
Yeah, that's why
you know what I
my
mean?
answer is no. Because I think that the interest hasn't grown. I think it's always been there. Mm-hmm. And I think that there is just so much more available now that is for their age group.
I don't actually get a lot of questions about it at the desk. Like I don't get blind, I need a good horror book for kids or young adults. But when we do, I did a Dare to Be Scared display in October and 28 books went out. So there's a lot of interest. I think they're not necessarily coming to us about it. They're finding it more on their own.
So how do horror stories help build literacy and critical thinking in young readers?
Well, first, I think that scary stories are exciting. And I think that you're already looking for ways to get kids engaged with reading. And it's more exciting than a lot of the other stuff that they're kind of told that they need to be reading at that age. So I think that's really important. Also, I would say that it helps kids to confront and process their own fears. They are given situations that they probably won't ever find themselves in, but given also people in situations that are afraid in ways that maybe does touch on ways that they're afraid of things in real life, and shows them ways to deal with it, but also allows them to confront it in a safer environment. Like I've said before, it's just a book. And sometimes reading about those fears and facing them in that format is a little bit easier.
As a former school librarian, it's a great way to get kids to make predictions. As I was telling Quinn a version of Little Red Riding Hood or something, and I'm like, what do you think is going to happen? And what do you think is going to happen to her? Or what do you think the wolf is going to do? And it also does support critical thinking as well, because my son will often tell me, well, if I were this person, I would do this. And it's like, oh, well, how would you do that? And so it's getting them to kind of put themselves in the character's shoes and leveling up the book in a way that they can experience it and kind of reimagine and relive it. So I really think that it's great. And also, if you read horror, there's a lot of vocabulary that these kids may not be exposed to. And it also enhances the telling of the story, where if you read it, and to go back to Elvin Schwartz, he not only collected folklore, he also collected folk songs, and he included the sheet music. So you could actually go on YouTube and hear people singing these folk songs. And my music teacher in elementary school played these songs for 5th and 6th graders. And we were singing There Wasn't a Woman, All Skin and Bones, and what is it? O'Leary is dead and O'Reilly don't know it. And it's like, it's so macabre, but it's just so much fun because we thought she was the coolest teacher ever in 1990, whatever. And that's stuck with me. So you're giving kids opportunities to relate to the text and material through different devices. And I think even just giving them that opportunity is a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. So for any age, what are some of the most popular horror titles with patrons right now that you've noticed?
You get this more than me with
I mean,
adults.
A lot of mine are adults. It's a lot of the newer stuff. One of the more popular titles is The Buffalo Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. It's kind of hard to find right now because
I'm actually reading it right now.
It's so popular. And some of the other ones that I've seen that have a little bit of a wait list or that people are asking for a lot: Victorian Psycho by Virginia Fito and Wake Up and Open Your Eyes by Clay McLeod Chapman. That's another one. I'd also say Witchcraft for Wayward Girls by Grady Hendrix and The Lamb by Lucy Rose. Both a little bit harder to find, a little newer.
I recommend Rachel Harrison to a lot of people or a lot of adults that give me that question. For teens, they are really into less of the horror and more of the murder mystery, because it's or like a serial killer, like teens are getting killed off and why. So when I ran a report on the top 10 most highest circulating titles in YA at all the branches, Karen McManus came up a lot. Her Nothing More to Tell is about a girl who investigates a cold case regarding the murder of her 8th grade English teacher. And then when we did our March Madness and we had to vote on one of the most popular circulating titles of that time, one of them was Tiffany Jackson's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and Good Girl, Bad Blood. So again, with the murder mystery aspect, that I think that's what a lot of my teens are really moving toward right now. Although I have a dark fantasy display up now that's slowly trickling, and so there is some like horror, folk horror in that as well.
Well, great. Well, thank you both so much. We are now joined by Kendare Blake, spokesperson of the Summer Scares program this year and author of books Anna Dressed in Blood, Anti-Goddess, 3 Dark Crowns, and many, many more. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
When did you first fall in love with the horror book genre?
Pretty early. I was one of those kids that read Stephen King like at age 10. So probably then, which is kind of odd because I wasn't a huge horror movie kid. But when it came to books, I was all in right away.
Were the movies too scary, or were you not allowed to watch them, or?
No, I mean, I guess I liked them. I didn't really seek them out. At the time, I wouldn't have said that I was particularly a horror fan. Like Beetlejuice just freaked me out. Nightmare on Elm Street was fine, but for whatever reason, like Beetlejuice, I like left the theater screaming.
Wow.
But yeah, so I don't know why, but I immediately jumped onto Stephen King and never really got off that train. And then from there, I went into Anne Rice and Poppy C. Bride and, all the other horror of the day.
That's awesome. What would you say is your favorite scary movie or book?
Favorite scary book is really tough. I still love to read horror. I try to pick up, several horror novels a year. So I'm going to go with like my childhood favorite was It by Stephen King. I just think that's like the masterclass on writing horror. It's got so many different scares of so many different types and a little something for everybody in that one, which makes sense. It's like 1,000 pages long.
So how do you approach writing horror for different age groups, especially young adults?
Yeah, pretty much the same as I approach anything else. I've never been asked to scale down anything in horror for young adults. Like nobody really asked me to cut scenes or, to not tear that guy's head off. It doesn't, it doesn't happen. The only thing that makes it a young adult or not young adult is the age of the protagonists, and certain scares are going to be more interesting and relevant to young people. Like I have something that I want to work on that's set in a retirement home, and I just don't think that's going to be for them.
Yeah.
But other than that, because that's going to have a lot of scares that are related to aging and, the body's breakdown, which, yes, is scary to humans. But I think kids are a little bit too far. They're not thinking about that. They think they're immortal. So it's things like that I consider concept more than content.
If I could jump in. Hi, Kendare. I'm Rosanne. I'm a huge fan of Anna Dressed in Blood. And to your point, when I read that, I think many years ago, it was the bloodiest, most disgusting thing I had ever read. It was so graphic and I loved it. So I appreciated just how far you took Anna and making her sympathetic and just her relationship with the protagonist. And I recommend that still to a lot of readers.
Oh, thank you. One of the nicest things a good writer friend of mine always says is that she knew she wanted to be my friend when she read Anna Dressed in Blood while she was eating lunch, and it made her stop eating her lunch. Yeah, I thought, oh my gosh, that's so nice. I strive to make people nauseous.
So with that, do you think horror has changed the way it speaks to readers over time? In recent years, has it sort of picked up and been more direct?
I think especially in young adult, horror is kind of having a big moment. We're seeing a lot of horror in young adult that's written by different kinds of authors, authors of color, authors of different identities. And that is cool because traditionally in horror, especially, those kind of characters and those kind of voices have kind of been sidelined. And I do think I love the classic horror. I love the horror of the past. I love R.L. Stine. I loved Christopher Pike. All of those great paperbacks that you used to carry around from classroom to classroom in your back pocket. They were fantastic. And trade them with your friends. Like, that was the most fun. But I do think horror for young adults has gotten, a little more thematic. Like, there's a lot more metaphor happening right now. I'm thinking about books like The Getaway by Lamar Giles, which is on the Summer Scares list this year. I love horror where the scares stand in for something that we're afraid of in our actual lives. And there's a lot of that going on right now. I mean, horror moves in different ways. It has its different trends. Sometimes body horror is really in. Sometimes it's, quieter, more gothic horror that's having its moment. But yeah, I really like what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, I think we definitely agree with that here. So Rosanne, Matt, and I were chatting about horror sequels earlier, and you're clearly the expert since you've written the Anna duology, the Goddess War trilogy, and the Three Dark Crowns series. Do you plan out a series ahead of time, or do you start with the first book and go from there?
Nowadays, I usually try to plan ahead of time. It doesn't always work. I thought Three Dark Crowns was going to be 2 books. It turned out to be 4. I'm hoping I get better at it. As time goes by, you can kind of feel or sense how much story there is to tell. But, sometimes you're always going to be wrong. Like, especially as far as horror novels, Anna Dressed in Blood, I wrote that. It was my first novel. So they always say, like, well, don't get in over your head. Just write something that can stand alone in case that's the one you can sell. So I wrote Anna to stand alone. And then when I sold it, my editor asked if I could turn it into a series. And I said yes, because also it was my first book and I'm going to do whatever my editor tells me to.
You mentioned Anne Rice earlier, and I was thinking about how in her writing, she came back to revisit Lestat from the Vampire Lestat and then Prince Lestat because she said like he would not shut up. And he kept talking to her and she had to get it all down. So I had a question for you, and that, do you have conversations with your characters as you're writing? Like, do they kind of come alive, or do they actively talk to you, or are they more kind of like something that you can control through the narrative? Like, do they ever like talk or clap back, as it were?
No, I relate to that Anne Rice quote quite a bit. And being a fan of Lestat, I can totally see how that would not be something she could live with and totally crowd out anything else that she wanted to do. I mean, I can actually see him just sabotaging any other book that she wanted to work on because he's so, an egomaniac. So my characters also, they will bug me if they have more to do. If there's more going on that they think I should know about, they will definitely let me know. They don't speak to me. I never actually hear a voice being like, hey. I think that would be very freaky.
Yes.
They do just keep popping up in my head and letting me know, like, this is happening over here, right? Like, yeah, I don't care right now. And they're like, but it is. I'm like, okay, that's great. So like that happened with Three Dark Crowns when I expanded the series from 2 to 4 because the survivors just, weren't finished. And it even happened with Kaz, the main character from the narrator from Anna Dressed in Blood. For years, people were asking for a 3rd Anna book. And, I'd listen for a while and he just wasn't there. And I'd have to tell them like, nope, he hasn't come back with another story to tell, he's a ghost hunter. Maybe he's dead. He lived a very dangerous life. I can't get in touch with him. But then around the 10-year anniversary, the new editor of Anna Dressed in Blood, who works at Tor, she asked me for some bonus content because they wanted to put that beautiful new cover on it. She's like, it'd be nice if we had something a little bonus material to put in there for readers too. And I'm like, sure, I can come up with something, or I'll look through my old folders. And instead, that's when I heard Kaz come back. And he was like, no, I'm still alive. And I do a podcast now with Thomas and Carmel. And my mom married an insurance salesman. I'm like, well, okay, here we go. So sometimes they do just pop up at unexpected moments and have something completely new to do.
That's great. So what drew you to participate in the Summer Scares program this year?
Well, my book, All These Bodies, was on the Summer Scares list for 2024. And that was so much fun. And it was so great, getting to talk about, scary stuff. And then they reached out and asked me if I would be their spokesperson for this year. So I said, like, yeah. I was only worried I didn't know how much time I would have for extra reading, but they're like, no, we'll give you a list. It won't be exhaustive. And I've never gotten to be on a committee that selected stuff like this before, so that was very exciting. It was a lot of fun.
That's great. So you mentioned earlier about young adult horror becoming more thematic. So are there any themes you hope readers take away from the Summer Scares reading list this year, or was it kind of just a mix of stories that y'all selected?
When it came to Summer Scares, we tried to get something for everyone. So there was a theme that ran through because of one of the Summer Scares partnerships. So there's a gaming element. One of the books in each of the categories contains a gaming element. And so that was fun. But we tried to do, to give readers the option, because I'm sure even amongst horror readers, the tastes vary widely. Some horror readers like a lot of gore. Some horror readers want it to be more subtle and psychological. So we tried to do a little bit of that within each one. Like, okay, well, this one's really splatterpunk, so we need to have at least one option that dials it back so we don't just, turn off everybody who can't handle it. We tried to center to get like a wide range of voices, so that the list was equally balanced between the kinds of books and the kinds of authors. So all of that came into play, and I think we came out with a really nice offering across all age groups.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic list. So this question was from Matt. Which 3 books, one in each age group, would you pick to be on your Summer Scares list?
Okay. That's really hard because I love them all, especially in the young adult group. Like that was like my little baby group.
Yeah.
I love all of those 3 books so much, and they're so different. I don't think you can really pick between them. Are you in the mood for Western styled zombies? Go with Emma Berquist. Are you in the mood for a Japanese style Jumanji with really disturbing characters? I mean, really disturbing monsters, but characters with a lot of it kind of gave me that It flashback of like feral kids on bikes. Then go with Kristen Simmons, Find Him Where You Left Him Dead. And if you just want something that horror in a theme park, I mean, you can't go wrong with The Getaway. As far as the adult category, they're all great. Eric LaRocca, very speculative, pretty gory, pretty pushing the envelope. But I would go with maybe Caitlin Starling. I really like all of Caitlin Starling's stuff. And even if you don't choose the one that we went with, she's got a lot more out there that you can dabble in. And the middle grade is probably the category I was least familiar with. I don't get asked to read middle grade, so it was a treat. They're all fantastic. It's kind of impressive just knowing how much of it's out there.
So which one of your own books do you think is the perfect summer read?
I was trying to think about this earlier when I saw this question pop up when you sent it through email. And I was like, oh, geez, I don't know. I don't know that any of my books necessarily have a very summery feel. All These Bodies takes place over the winter. I don't know if you can really tell that. And I'm actually writing a screenplay for it right now, and it takes place over the summer. So it almost feels like a summer book. Maybe the Goddess War series. So Anti-Goddess, Mortal Gods, and Ungodly. That's like if you're on break from school and you don't have anything to do, why not go kill a bunch of Greek gods? That might work.
I love that.
But otherwise, yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I mean, they're all kind of murdery. in his murdery summary, I guess.
I think Summer Scares is proven that it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I don't understand. Like, yeah, we wanted point of Summer Scares is to get people reading horror year round versus just in October.
Yeah.
Which I always thought was weird because I loved horror around the campfire. Like, that is the best place for it. So if you're out in the wilderness, bring a scary book, because there's nothing better than being kind of scared and also in the middle of nowhere all by yourself.
I would also add that, as a parent of a young child, I don't actually get to read on the beach anymore, but I think Jaws is the perfect summer beach read.
I think your beach day would be shortened.
That's true. Oh, but Kendare, I had one more question. What, as an author, do you find you have a lot of free time to read for pleasure? And if so, like what is on your, like, any book or any genre, what's on your summer to read list?
I'm actually a pretty slow reader, which is why I was concerned about the amount of reading that was going to be required for Summer Scares. Tend to savor things. I'm not fast. That always surprises people. I think they think that all authors are just like whipping through stuff, but not me. And I don't get the chance to read a lot for myself. I do get asked to read a lot for work and to look at books that haven't come out yet, to like provide blurbs for them and things. But I managed to get in a few. And they're always, I'll always pick up a horror if I see it. Right now, I'm in the middle of Justin Cronin's The Ferryman, which is kind of literary, speculative, sci-fi stuff. I'm just over halfway. It's pretty good. I'm enjoying it.
I read his other series. I'm a big fan of his. So, but he doesn't let you off easy with the short books. It's like you really dive into them.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is a brick, but it is really fast. So I've been intimidated to pick it up. It's been sitting on my coffee table for like 2 years since it came out, and I'm just looking at it going like, not now, not now. They move fast. It moves fast.
Oh, have you read The Passage by him by chance?
No.
You should.
I don't know what it is about me, but when a writer really breaks out like that, for some reason, I find myself usually approaching them through their lesser known works first.
No, that's fair too.
I don't know. That's just kind of strange, but that tends to be what I do.
I like that. Whenever books are too big in the physical form, I'm like, all right, I think that's going to be an ebook for me because it's less intimidating.
Or an audiobook, like if you read Under the Dome by Stephen King. I don't know how many discs that thing was, but it was like at least 30 or 40 discs.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Is that worth it? That's one of the Stephen Kings that I haven't read, and I thought I might circle back.
Yes, the book to me was worth it because he's focusing on this community and they're under like a literal and metaphorical magnifying glass and like how they react to the stress. And he just writes the characters so well. I would not necessarily go into this for the plot. But if you love and understand the way he writes characters, reading the book is really, really good. It's a worthy use of your time.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Because he does that so well.
It reminded me a lot of
writing like everyman characters and putting them into really difficult situations and squeezing them. Yeah, he does that really well. Okay, I will pick that one up.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and talking Summer Scares. We're really excited for this program.
Oh, thank you so much for supporting it, giving us the opportunity to talk about some scary stuff all year round. It's a really great list. I've heard from a lot of parents actually who have like a couple different ages of children, and they were just really excited about being able to kind of do like a family reading thing where they would pick a book, and then their 15-year-old would pick a book, and their 10-year-old would pick a book from each part of the list. So hopefully there's a lot of that going on this summer.
Well, thank you, and have a great rest of your morning.
Thank you. You too.
Take care.
Bye, Kendare.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, so back to chatting about Summer Scares at PWPL. We mentioned briefly at the beginning, but what programs are happening this year to celebrate it?
We are having we're having two simultaneously running programs. One is A Perfect Match, which is our summer version of Blind Date with a Book, and I will probably throw a few more horror titles in there than necessary. But the idea is that you wrap a book up and then you write like a descriptive or eye-catching blurb about it on the front, and then there's a slip inside where the reader can rate it as being a perfect match, and then we do a drawing for a prize with them. And then we had such a great turnout for our 2-sentence horror story contest back in October that we're doing it again. And we're doing it in July, and there's going to be a category for the middle grade and a category for teens as well.
And adults.
And adults. Oh,
it's going to be, everybody can participate in that.
I had Matt read the entries from October, and some of these teens, like, they scared the pants off of me.
Yes, very scary.
They're very, very good at it. So we're doing that. And then what's the adult got going on?
We're really looking forward to our first retro horror night at Haymarket Gainesville Library. We're going to be screening one of my favorite movies, George A. Romero's Night of the Living Dead from 1968. That is on the 16th of July at 5:40 p.m. And then the next Wednesday, we're going to be hosting the second annual Horror Trivia Night at Great Maine Brewing in downtown Haymarket. We had a great time the first event, and this one is going to be really good. We're going to answer some horror questions and give away some books. We're going to give away some of the books on the Summer Scares list.
Oh, great. And of course, if you want to see all of the programs happening for Summer Scares and just summer in general, they are available on our website at the online events calendar at pwcva.gov/library. So, any parting thoughts or tips before we go out and get scared?
I always say, don't be afraid to try horror. There is so much out there, and I know that there is something for everyone. I've seen it myself through my book club, and having people who are spooky curious and are wondering what's out there for them. Is horror right for them, or afraid to even try it, and have found something that they connect with and that they like. And I would also say, if you need help finding out what kind of horror is for you, ask one of us. Ask a librarian. We will find something for you. We want to put those books in your hands. So,
and don't be ashamed if books are not your immediate gateway, because there's so much horror content out there right now with TV shows and movies and video games. So if you are a huge fan of The Last of Us and you're looking for books that are like that, or if you are so excited that Clown in a Cornfield is coming out on your birthday, and you really just want to go and see a clown in a cornfield getting beaten up by teens horror movie, that's absolutely fine. There's so many ways to digest and process horror that we're happy to point you in any direction that is most comfortable or exciting to you.
Just a quick question. Do you guys happen to know, does Canopy have a horror
I'm sure
they
it
have
does.
an extensive horror category.
Ooh.
There is a lot of stuff on Canopy.
which is our film streaming service.
Look at Canopy's horror movie selection. There's a lot.
Awesome. I will close this out with a quote from The Thing, from the collection of horror stories referenced in the episode title and frequently by Rosanne. Scary stories to tell in the dark, gathered by folklorist Alvin Schwartz. You may be next. Thank you for listening, and join us next month for the next episode of Important Library Stuff.